So welcome to my garage. So a couple weeks ago I met with a friend who was selling his 1979 BMW R100T, and I bought it, and I'm realizing that I really should have checked it out first, which is totally my fault. I know better. Did I get screwed? I don't know. It's hard to say at this point. I pretty much screwed myself. But let me show you what I found so far and what I should have been looking for before I agreed to buy it. I'll spare you the gory details of taking it all apart and start right here with it being apart. So when I rode it home, I noticed this loud clunking sound anytime I went over a bump. It turns out that that was the nut on the triple tree was actually finger loose. So the top plate could bounce around over the tightening nut, which is under the top plate. So that was tight, the tightening nut, but the top cap nut was loose, so which meant the upper part of the fork triple tree could bounce around. I was worried that the steering bearings were notched or bad. The owner assured me that they had been done, but now that the forks are out, I can definitely feel some sticking and notchiness. Yeah, so front bearings are borked. So that was the first thing I discovered. And then the next thing I discovered was that the forks, when compressed, would collapse all the way. So I'd be driving along, apply the brakes, I'd feel the front end go down, and it would stay down. Normally, as you accelerate, it'll come back up, but it just stayed down. And the other thing I noticed was that my hands got stuck under the fairing. So with this handlebar that was here, my hand would physically get stuck under there. So it turns out that the wrong handlebars are on here. These are the ones that are on it, and they are the wrong shape because this is in RS fairing, no scoop, RS fairing on a T, but they put handlebar with risers on, whereas the RS handlebars are straight and then straight, and they come back at a much steeper angle. So I was warned when I bought the bike that the front brakes were terrible, and it was chalked up to it being an older bike, but they were really bad. I mean, I had to squeeze the hell out of this. And when I got home, I discovered that there was oil or grease all over the brake rotors. And upon further inspection, that was actually fork oil coming from the bottom seals on the fork. They were all gooey and gross. There was significant fork oil up by the seals. And also the forks had collapsed. So I was arriving at either that there was no fluid in the forks, and that's why they were sticking, or in fact the forks were bent and they were getting stuck in the tubes, which is another common occurrence. The motorcycle had been in an accident, which I didn't quite understand the extent of the accident, but the frame had been replaced, tank is bent. I asked him about the forks after I bought it, and he said, oh, the forks had been replaced, or one of the forks had been replaced. One of the rotors had been replaced, so this is a floating rotor. And the one on the other side is the stock riveted rotor. So two different rotors. The forks had been done by forking by Frank, and they were sticking. So took it all apart. I measured both of the forks on glass, and they are bent, and they were bent and installed in a way that would cause stiction. So this fork was bent towards the camera, and this fork was bent to the left. So this guy was sort of curved like this in the fork, and this guy was curved like this. So you can imagine as the bike went down, it would be shorter distance here against the axle and cause the forks to stick. So having an appropriate amount of fluid probably helped, but definitely the bent forks did not help. And then upon further disassembly of the forks, this is as I found it. So the spring is here, and this bumper was here under the spring. Here are the piston rings. Here's a relief damper, and then the damping rod, and then the end. This is where the crush washer was. The crush washers that I pulled out of here were beyond crushed. I mean, crushed and bent, and so I don't know if they had been replaced or just over torqued. One of these was over torqued and snapped off, so I've had to order a new one of these, the end bolts. The springs were just gooped up. The springs were stuck in the end, completely jammed in there. So this is the way everything should look on a fork. This is the extension stopper. So as this piston goes all the way down in the tube, it hits this stopper and stops. When I got the bike, this stopper was up here under the spring. So it was like this, and then the spring, I actually found this stopper in the tube, but it definitely doesn't belong on the spring side. It belongs down here. And then, like I said, I found this extra washer there that is not normally supposed to be there, and that must change something about the damping characteristic, but I can't find any info or any information about why you would add that. So once I put it all back together, the spring will be here. I'm going to leave out that rubber washer, and I'll install the stopper down at this end where it's supposed to be. And then there's the big stopper in the cap, of course. There's a big stopper there. So those are the things that I've found so far. What I'm really worried about, though, is that when I did drive it home, I couldn't really get above 75 miles an hour. And I've ridden one of these from the 80s, 100 miles an hour, easy, just loves it. No matter how much I revved, no matter what I did, I tucked in, I couldn't get to go above 75, 80. So I might either have a fueling problem or a compression problem. But either way, I'm not getting the horsepower that I should be getting, or at least I think I should be getting on this bike. So I'll put the forks back together. I got the seal kits for the forks, put them all back together. Hopefully I can align them in a way that relieves the binding or the stiction, even though there is a slight bend in the forks. I think if they bend together this time, it shouldn't allow the stanchion tubes to stick. And I'll ride it. And I'm meeting with my local motorcycle group, MOA group, next weekend. We're having a tech day. So hopefully I can get the bike working by then, enough that I can ride it there, and together we'll all go through the being carbs on this bike, I think. If not, we'll do it another bike and I can learn from the experience. But I think I also need to get a compression test done and see if I got a piston ring problem or a valve problem, in addition to all these other problems I've had. So back to the big question, did I get screwed? I screwed myself. I really should have looked for these kinds of things to begin with. These aren't BMW specific problems, these are just old motorcycle problems. So live and learn. At the end, hopefully I'll have a cool bike. Hopefully it's a bike I want to take out and that I trust. Thanks for watching, and please subscribe. It'll definitely help me build the channel.